The sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
When it comes to having the best in class, from coaches to management to, believe it or not, like shower heads, right? It's the smallest little details that make the biggest difference. It's the food in the clubhouse, right? It's the bus they travel in. It's the plane they travel in. And all these little things, we have an opportunity. If you collect all small things, they become really big things. The medical department, right? We want to be best in class at all. In order to do that, that's going to take a lot of time. But we want to really be long-term greedy, not short-term greedy.
There he is. Alex Rodriguez. Get used to it. It is weird. It is weird.
Strange. I don't like it.
I went to Marc. I was looking up some Marc Lore stuff for this core values-centric episode of Mackey and Judd today. We're gonna go through and give the Wolves core values today because that's what Marc Lore and Alex Rodriguez.
Marc Lore's trying to do that right now.
And I went to Alex Rodriguez's social media pages. He's like in the Wolves. Declan sent me this. He's in the Wolves practice facility yesterday, just jacking up threes in a Wolves, sweatshirt and stuff. Marc Lore has his LinkedIn banner changed to Wolves and Lynx branding, and so it is. It is bizarre. It is a new era. This is Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment. We just want titles. And as strange as that sounds to say when talking about the Timberwolves, maybe the core values that we instill on today's show will push them in that direction. What do you guys think?
A-Rod jacking up threes. I didn't see that.
Dude, he's got a nice shot.
That.
Yeah,
I'm sure he does. Good athlete. I mean, he was a great athlete, but... I do think the one thing, though, so the showerhead thing on the surface is funny because it's him.
Was it a Ted Lasso reference? I have not seen the show Ted Lasso, but people are saying that was a Ted Lasso reference.
I'm like the only American to not watch that show, I feel like.
It's on my list. But
I've heard great things about it. I have not seen one
us
yet.
Three haven't. Sweet.
No,
right,
all three of us haven't. But
I want to watch it.
But I will say, I think part of the philosophy he's talking about also comes from at least dating back to when Mark Cuban bought the Mavs. Because if you recall, like he was big on players being comfortable, and I think he put at the time, I'm not joking, DVD players in their lockers and redesigned.
That's what the Wolves are going to. The Wolves are so far behind that they're like, all right, guys,
you know what?
All right, we're gonna
Here's what we're going to do.
Here's Transformers on DVD.
Every one of you gets a Walkman and a Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
But I
pretty soon, PlayStation 2 is going to come out.
Yeah.
All right, so
you never know.
Wait till you see the PSP. It's handheld. It's pretty great.
Okay, everybody for Christmas, Beta machine.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Merry Christmas and an 8-track.
So Marc Lore talks very frequently about core values, not only when he's talking about the Timberwolves, and you can't help when you listen to A-Rod and Lore and everything they say in terms of here's what we're going to do or here's what's missing. I can't help but connect the dots and be like, wait, Glen Taylor's been the owner for 25 years and they haven't defined their core values as a company? I mean, like every credible company has a mission statement and core values that they try to hire and live by. And apparently that's missing still with the Timberwolves. And then Alex Rodriguez talking about showerhead and medical and the best in class. I'm thinking, all right, so he hates the medical staff. He thinks the practice facility is a dump, even though they just built it.
Took a shower there, didn't like it.
Yeah, right.
God, the water pressure here sucks. What's going on?
What the hell?
But Marc Lore frequently talks about defining what you want your company culture to be. And according to a recent Pioneer Press profile on him this summer, the core values Lore established so he has built multiple startups and has sold two of them, one to Walmart for $3.3 billion about 5 years ago. And then he sold, that was Jet.com. And then he sold Diapers.com to Amazon before that. So he's like for billions. So his core values at Jet.com, which sold, again, for $3.3 billion to Walmart, fairness, trust, and transparency. And you'll see a lot of other companies. I actually have a list of some of them here that go much further in depth. But fairness, trust, and transparency. Amazon is guided by 4 principles: customer obsession rather than competitor focus, passion for invention, commitment to operational excellence, and long-term thinking. It makes sense. Amazon has become this behemoth. I actually found Apple's original core values back in like the early 80s, but I'm going to present to you their current core values, which are: we believe that we are on the face of the earth to make great products. We believe in simple, not complex. We believe we need to own and control technology. And we believe in saying no to thousands of products or projects so we can really focus on the few projects that are truly important. And then Bill Belichick with the Patriots, for his core values, he preaches 3 Ps: passionate people, preparation, and performance. So Amazon, Apple, New England Patriots, that's the framework for those great American companies.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should go through the exercise of giving the Wolves core values. That's what these guys are going to do. I'm sure they're sitting in a room, scratching out different ideas. At some point, maybe it'll be plastered on the wall inside, the practice facility.
You better believe it will be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I've got 3 core values. I don't know if you guys have actually gone through and put together core values, but I have 3 core values for the Timberwolves.
Okay.
Do you want them? Would you like them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I've got a couple, but I'd like to hear these. So
Okay.
we'll play off these.
So my number one core value for the Timberwolves is 10 years of Ant and Cat together. All right? Plaster it. I want a 10, and I guess technically they already have 1 under their belt.
Yeah.
So let's get at least 9 more years. KG never had a long-term sidekick. Kevin Love was, a borderline star, and he got burnt out by David Kahn. Every time they've had any sort of semblance of a potential great player or a Hall of Fame player in KG, they've been unable to support that player with the right infrastructure, coaches, and most importantly, a sidekick. Mm-hmm. You thought Stephon Marbury was going to be like a 10-year pairing, KG and Marbury, and then he went bonkers and demanded a trade. So 10 years of Ant and Cat. Whatever you have to do to develop Ant, to make Cat happy, to put the right coach, maybe it's Chris Finch in place, the right role players.
Right.
Let's have a decade-long Batman-Robin pairing here of Ant and Cat.
And in a broader perspective, I think that's also, if you widen it outside of just 2 players, that's also the value of identifying your most important assets and building around them, as opposed to, let's see, what did Glenn do? Alienated them at times.
Yeah.
So if you identify, and this probably is true for your team on the court, the business side as well, right? Who are your most important assets? Who are your star employees, which can be players as well? And then to actually maintain the relationship, keep them happy, and get the most production that you possibly can, as opposed to go to them and say, we're just going to trade you to Boston and then rip you on the way out the door. So, yeah.
And the other thing, too, about keeping players happy, I feel like how that's defined when it comes to the Timberwolves is different than how it's defined elsewhere. Winning keeps players happy, largely. If you're paying them market value and they're part of a winning team and a winning culture, some guys are still going to want out, or, there's, it's not foolproof. But, with the Timberwolves, we think, Cat likes Ryan Saunders, and so let's have Ryan Saunders, 5 years before he's ready to be a head coach. Let's just put him in there because Cat likes him. He won't leave.
Right.
D'Lo, let's, and I like D'Lo, but Cat likes D'Lo. Let's trade for his friend, right?
Yeah. The maddening thing about the Wolves is they always are, in some way, shape, or form, trying to put a piece of chewing gum on the problem. So it's here's the quick fix. And that's not how companies should run. You should have values and goals and the ability to project what's coming next. But instead, they're like, well, Cat's sort of pissed off now, and the Tibbs thing didn't work at all. What should we do? Ryan Saunders, we'll put some chewing gum here, and now we're gonna go get D'Lo, more chewing gum, as opposed to what's actually going to make this entire franchise as productive as possible, which is going to make Cat happy.
Yeah. All right. So 10 years of Ant and Cat is my number one core value. Let's make this one of the best player combos in the NBA. Number 2, if the Bucks can win a title, so can we. All right. For years and years. Yes. If the Bucks can win a title, so can we.
Why not us?
It's 5 hours right across the Midwest and the Mississippi. You got to find your Giannis, and you got to find your Middleton and a bunch of great role players. So you can't just flip a switch. But for years and years, the thought has been, unless you're one of the big coastal cities like Miami or LA New York has been god awful at basketball for a long time, but like you got to be in one of these big markets, right? Well, that's not necessarily true. San Antonio built a 20-year near dynasty. It's there's other teams that have been like Portland's not a championship contender, but Portland's been a relevant, rock solid team with Damian Lillard. So, but the Bucks have taken it to the Bucks have sort of broken a glass ceiling here that most people thought a Midwest team never really could, outside of Detroit, I guess. So who's your Giannis? Maybe Ant is sort of by who's your Giannis, I mean, who is your bona fide top 5 player Giannis? MVP? And maybe Ant can be that. Maybe Cat has another level to his game, and then you got to find your role players. But the Bucks should be giving the Timberwolves some belief here. If they can win a championship in a Midwestern cold city that's not super attractive to free agents, they've shown you that you can still build a great team that can slay some of the more noteworthy giants.
Mm-hmm. And the Bucks also, if I'm not mistaken, the Bucks have been sold within the last 5 years, something like that.
New arena too.
And there was but yeah, exactly. So there was a very similar parallel potentially in what the Wolves are going to go through and what the Bucks have gone through. And yeah, if you make yourself, and what did the Bucks do too, both from an on-court and business standpoint? They went from being this, it's the Bucks, they're going to get in the playoffs and then they're going to lose or they're not going to make the playoffs. They graduated from that step to making themselves a happening thing in the town, which is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And that's both from a basketball side and business side. Because the other thing that we probably don't talk about enough, because the Wolves on the court are just so feeble and awful, we probably don't talk about the fact that business-wise, I don't think this team's gotten it right in years, partially because they're bad. But also
it's really hard to make that a fun, attractive, marketable product.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, have they really maximized the ability to market what they can? They sort of try, but I feel like there's so many more ideas that are probably beyond my pay grade. But you've got Ant, you've got Cat. Like you should be setting the foundation of making this the cool thing, and then if it takes off, you're in great shape. And it just feels like the permeation of woe is me always outweighs everything else. Mm-hmm. And in the case of Ant, that's too bad, because he's a fun kid. He gets it. He's not like, I get the whole Cat thing, Cat the victim, and people get tired of that. But Ant's never done a thing that I don't say, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, this could be the year. I mean, if Ant takes a leap, if he plays like he did in the second half of last season and then either sustains it or adds to it, they're going to win games. Like they're going to flirt with the playoffs, if not make the playoffs, and then it'll be easier to have fun with marketing. But you got to get past this initial uncomfortable train wreck here that's happening before the season.
As a guy who's gone to games, may I say, when your most exciting marketing standpoint thing is who wants a T-shirt from a T-shirt cannon, I could help you on that. Like the first quarter break, that can't be your, okay.
All right, everybody.
What do we got up our sleeve?
The Wolves are down by 40 going into the fourth, but who wants a free T-shirt?
And, bellowing PA people on the sideline doing that and stuff. Like, that's really, really cool when I was 25.
Wolves in 6. If the Bucks in 6, Wolves in 6, baby, I'm for it.
Man. Fear the Deer is a great slogan.
That's a great one, too.
Fear the Deer is great. Get rid of the damn T-shirts. That's my slogan.
All right. I don't know. I like the free T-shirts. I don't think they have to go. Just win more games. All right. So 10 years of Ant and Cat. If the Bucks can win a title, so can we. And then my third core value is, quite simply, if you can't shoot, we won't draft you. Jarrett Culver, Chris Dunn, Josh Okogie. They also drafted that 7-footer. Is it Justin something or another? That was a Tom Thibodeau draft pick. He never played a game with the Wolves. Like, if you can't shoot,
the Bulls draft pick,
we won't draft you.
I like it.
I don't care what your athletic prowess is. Like, there might be some exceptions here. If you're an elite defender or something, and Okogie is a fine defender, but if we can't put you out there, and if you can't stand in the corner and knock down a three at like a 38% clip, then you have no business being on the court for a team that aspires to do damage in the playoffs in 2021. So stop drafting players that can't shoot. So 10 years of Ant and Cat. If the Bucks can win a title, so can we. So raise your expectations. And if you can't shoot, we won't draft you. Those are my 3 core values.
I
like
love that. So when you
can't
walk
shoot.
in, you see
Yeah.
you can't shoot. Why can't we be the Bucks? So here's the most important thing I think that Laurie can actually establish immediately, because basketball wise, it's going to take some time, and you're going to definitely have to get the right people in place. And, those people might not exist right now in the building. They might eventually. But the thing that Laurie can control from day one, and the thing that this franchise has completely lacked the entire time under Glen Taylor, my number one core value for this entire franchise, business and basketball, foresight. For what's coming, not what's popular. Not what's popular now, not what did we do 5 years ago, not what did Glenn do with his paper company in Mankato circa 1976, because do you remember how cool that all was? What is coming around the corner? And I mean, and I'm sure that the new group has done this, but this is where you can go to school on guys like Marc Cuban. Marc Cuban bought the Mavs and basically said, what can I do to improve it, and what's coming next? Just as far as the franchise running stability-wise, because if I recall correctly, the Mavs were a mess. Like, the Mavs were in disarray. And Marc Cuban came in, and yes, he put, he redid the locker room. He put in new showers. He made players comfortable. I mean, player comfort is so important now. It's so important. And I mean, again, the Wolves redid their locker room, but it's still, probably 25th in the league, right? I just think foresight in every way possible, including trends in the game. Like, it feels like the Wolves have been like, oh, okay, the Rockets have had some success. We got to do what the Rockets are doing. But is that what's coming? And is that going to differ? Because I'd rather that you have people who are ahead of the curve as opposed to we got to go get a guy. I mean, you think about this, you guys. Derek Falvey, right? Derek Falvey, Cleveland's got pitching. We got to go get the guy from Cleveland. Gersson Rosas, he knows the secrets in Houston.
Yeah, they shoot a lot of threes in Houston.
Yeah.
Let's get him and shoot some threes and draft Jarrett Culver. It'll be great.
But
friend of the show.
Laurie's background, if you look, Phil, in the things that you ran through at the outset of this segment, is foresight of things. And then he sells them.
All foresight.
And then he spins them.
Yeah.
But that's what
he's literally building a city of the future.
Yes. And what's your whole thing
and he's going to move the Wolves there.
Yeah, yes. The Wolves are moving where? Pluto.
Saturn, yeah.
They're going to play on Pluto.
Neptune. It's going to
be unbelievable. But Phil, our conversations to date back to when things have not gone right with the Twins, our conversations have been, and I think your words are, Jim Pohlad, the biggest strike there, it's not spending, it's curiosity. Well, if Jim Pohlad's not curious, my God, where does Glen Taylor rank?
Glen, I think both Jim and Glen are terrible professional sports owners in their own right. And Jim, it's more because he's this like sort of uncurious, passive kind of bystander. Like he's not an innovative guy. I mean, he inherited family money, right? I mean, not to say that he isn't smart or that he doesn't run businesses, but he's not Mr. Dynamic, bringing a great culture. Like the people he's hired have, like Terry Ryan was great for a long time, and I think Falvey and Levine were pretty rock solid for a few years, and now it's time to produce some pitching. But Glenn has been. It's so weird because Glenn cares, and he sits courtside in his little sweaters, and it's obvious that he's super passionate about the Timberwolves and the Lynx. But he's also kind of an absentee owner. Like he's certainly not active in creating this great set of core values and a culture and a mission. Otherwise, he wouldn't whiff so often. He'd know exactly what he's looking for who to hire, instead of having to use David Stern and a search firm for all those years. And so he winds up whiffing on some of these hires. But I don't know that I'd want him being super active either. I just want him gone.
Right now you do, but circa 2000, it would have been nice for him to evolve a bit and hire people who said, here's what's coming, Glenn, basketball wise. Here's where the game is going. Like, when's the last time the Wolves?
Well, David Kahn thought he knew.
Exactly.
Johnny Flynn, baby. That's where the game's going.
Exactly. But I mean, everything is such a mess because this franchise has always been trying to play catch up. And at times they've been trying to do it with really bad basketball people.
Yep. So at the very least, Marc Lore should bring a ton of foresight. Well, it remains to be seen if he's going to be a great culture builder and hirer of people and stuff. But it's going to be hard to find a potential owner of the Timberwolves or any other franchise that's got more foresight and vision than a guy who's literally building a city of the future. I don't know. So, all right, any other core values before we move on to write that down prediction?
I mean, and this is just not just for the Wolves. I think it goes like well beyond for any company or just relationships in general, but just like open communication, communicating and knowing who's working for you. The fact that Glen Taylor basically couldn't pick Gupta out of a police line, as Doogie elegantly said.
Let's actually
yesterday.
talk about that. Yeah. Okay.
Like, come on, dude. How do you not know that person?
That's amazing. It's not shocking at all, and I don't want to just devolve this into another Glen Taylor rip session. We have literally hours of that you can find the last couple of weeks on Mackey and Judd. But isn't it amazing? The second guy in line in that front office, who then was deemed qualified enough to take over the reins without any search for his job. That we've gone from Glenn doesn't know who this dude is in the hallway, and I trust Doogie's reporting on that. He's not just making that up, all right? You can find the full scoop session yesterday on Mackey and Judd, bonus episode. We went from Glenn has no idea who this guy is to he's now running the show and might make a Ben Simmons trade. So either Marc Lore drove that decision, which I think is very possible, or Glenn is just whatever, just we don't want to deal with a search on the eve before the regular season. So that guy over there, who has the guy with the beard who built the trade machine, you're running the Timberwolves now.
I'm not quite so sure that the inappropriate office relationship that Gersson had. I'm not quite sure that if Glenn is just still in charge and there's no slow transition going on, that Gersson gets fired.
Yeah, I think Lore blew the whistle here. From an ownership level.
But I think Glenn would have called in Gersson and been like, we can't have this. This isn't good. Yeah. But I don't think he fires him. And so I think you're right. I think Lore found out about this, went to Glenn and said, we got to make a change here, which is fine. Actually good. And that Glenn said, oh, okay. And so and then Glenn probably said, but who's going to replace him?
Actually, I'm going to add some of my own insighting here, if you guys will have me.
We got a little scoop.
Oh, got some
scoops. I'm going to give you guys a little inside information.
Wow.
Okay. I know that I usually leave the capital J journalism reporting to the John Krasinskis and the Doogies of the world. I was talking to a couple people inside the organization on Saturday this last weekend. And a lot of the stuff that I was told has been reported. So, I would say 80% of the things I was told was sort of reinforced through Johnny K's reporting and whatnot. But I asked this person who was very involved in the process to hire Gersson Rosas. And by the way, all of the people involved just sort of feel like a little shell-shocked and, God. But I said, when did you know that things weren't right? He was here for 2 years and 3 months or whatever it was, and he received rave reviews in his interview process, and it was unanimous across the board. Yep, this is the guy. The interview process, home run, this is the guy. Mm-hmm. At what point did you guys sort of feel like, ooh, I don't know about this guy? And this person's answer was, within a couple months, they knew that he wasn't the guy that they interviewed. And then they had to decide, okay, so, well, that sucks. He's a different person and leader than the one that portrayed himself in the interview process. Is it still workable? Can he that doesn't have to be a deal breaker. Is he still capable of doing his job, running the front office, making the necessary trades? And he did do some really good things, turning the roster over, getting rid of the Andrew Wiggins contract, and the roster is undeniably better right now than it was 2 years ago. Between when Jimmy Butler was traded and then with what Gersson was left with. Mm-hmm. But they had to decide a couple months in, and they're like, oh my God, he is hard. He's not the same guy. He's hard to get along with. He's just different than we thought he was when we put him through this interview process. And so from that point, it was another probably 1.5 to 2 years before he actually got let go. I don't know how in tune Glen was with any of that, because I don't think he's a very active owner anymore. So Lori comes in, and as it was put to me, Lori in particular, but Lori and A-Rod have been very active over the last 3 months. One-on-one conversations with employees, and that's how a lot of this got expedited. And so my educated guess here in speculation, I don't have this on, ironclad authority, is that Lori's spidey senses went up. A guy who's been involved with Amazon, Walmart, like he's hired CEOs, and he knows in his mind what a great effective leader looks like and how that person interacts with the people that work for him or her, right? And in his one-on-one conversations with people behind the scenes, I think a theme started to emerge, and then he brought it to Glen, and then this got expedited. But that's, as it was put to me, that's sort of the timetable of how this played out over the last couple of years. Interesting.
Well, and I also, and this would actually apply to the Paul Fenton thing with the Wild as well. The guy that has the GM job in hockey or the Pobo in basketball is the most important person probably in your building who's not a player. And the Wolves' way of trying to find that guy has been, let's try a search committee now. Okay, no, that didn't work. Let's try 9 employees that I like and take to lunch sometimes. I think if you own a team, it's incumbent upon you to put together a system from day one for identifying people, and not just be like, okay, I like the guy who sells tickets. You're going to talk to Gersson, and the guy who is the head usher, great. He's going to talk to Gersson. You need to put together an idea, a strategy, long before you actually have to talk to people about how you're going to find people. And the problem now, Phil, and this is true for guys going into the football draft. It's true for basketball employees like Gersson. They take classes. They're prepped on how to approach the process to fool you. So you need to have in place a person or people who are fully aware of how to read that, how to go through that, how to make a decision to hire the most important person, or one of them in your franchise. Yeah. Don't you?
Yes. And here's another one too. If you get a chance, I found this article here. I was looking for it before the show. Marc Lore actually wrote an article for LinkedIn on May 8th of 2018, and it's entitled "The 6 Traits I Look For When I'm Hiring." And he talks about like his history of hiring people. I've heard him on a couple podcasts talk about this too. But what I was gonna say is, and I'll send this out on social media so I'll send this out on Twitter or something, or share it on LinkedIn. But Marc Lore isn't going to bat 1,000% hiring. He's probably whiffed on a bunch of hires in his career. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to big companies, corporations, like big public jobs, right? Marc Lore, I think, has more experience hiring like C-level people or president of, in this case, he's never hired a president of basketball operations, obviously. But I would trust Marc Lore's instinct in vetting out those important hires much, 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 much more than whatever Glen Taylor's convoluted and chaotic process has been over 25 years.
Yep. Agree completely.
So a shout out to our friends at Federated. Federated has been around for over 100 years. You want to talk about great culture and leadership, and you thrive at that level for 100 plus years helping business owners. You can learn a thing or two from Federated about risk management, bottom line protection, protecting your employees, all kinds of tools, resources, and people at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. So, all right. So those are the core values that we want the Timberwolves to
Wolves in 6
install. Wolves in 6.
Why can't we be the Bucks?
Wolves in 6.
10 years of Ant and Cat. That's all I want. Just 10 years of Ant and Cat. All right. Write that down. Predictions and an accountability session coming up here on Mackey and Judd.